Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives, and check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/Great Detectives. Today's program is brought to you in part by the financial support of our listeners. You can support the show on a one-time basis, support.greatdetectives.net. You can also become one of our ongoing Patreon supporters for as little as $2 per month. And I want to thank Tom for becoming a Patreon supporter at the Master Detective level of $15 or more per month. And I want to thank Todd for coming on board at the Shamus level of $4 or more per month. Again, thank you so much for your support. Now it is time for this week's episode of The Man Called X. I've mentioned before that a lot of NBC programs have a big gap in their available episodes in 1951 and 52. It's true of Dangerous Assignment and Nightbeat, but it's also true of The Man Called X. This episode aired 12 weeks after the last episode we played, and 12 weeks before the next episode that we have available. So it is the only episode in circulation for 25 weeks. That said, the original air date is October the 1st, 1951, and the title is Invitation to Murder.
Listen to Herbert Marshall as The Man Called X. Wherever there's mystery, intrigue, romance in all the strange and dangerous places of the world, there you will find The Man Called X. Of all the weapons of modern warfare, those that have gained the greatest notoriety are the guided missiles, the death-dealing germs, the terrifying atomic and H-bombs. But perhaps the deadliest, the most vicious weapon of all is one that we cannot see nor feel, but the impact of which can be 1,000-fold more destructive. The weapon, the big lie. A widow in a modest New York apartment receives a mysterious telephone call.
I got it from a guy who was drafted at the same time. Just thought you ought to know. They're sending his son overseas right away. And he hasn't even learned how to fire a rifle. Just thought you ought to know.
A rumor spreads throughout a minority community in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, they're really getting a raw deal. All of your guys in Korea are being used as assault troops. They get themselves bumped off, knocking out enemy positions, and the other boys move up without even getting their hair mussed. Talk about a raw deal.
In a small town just outside an army camp in Tennessee.
The way I heard it, they don't know how good these new atom rockets will work against troops. So they shipped A and B companies out to the proving grounds last week to use them as human guinea pigs. They say the hospital's already full of guys dying from atom burns.
So it looks like we're faced with another Operation Big Lie, Chief.
If you don't think so, Ken, look at these reports. Dallas, New York, Kansas City, San Francisco. The same thing everywhere. Rumors.
Yeah, the old story. Play race against race and religion against religion. Throw suspicion on our whole defense program. What's been done about it, Chief?
I've got men assigned to every principal city. So far, they've turned up nothing. Not one lead as to where those rumors are coming from. I tell you, Ken, this thing has got me so upset that excuse me. Yes, Miss Brooks?
A collect call for you, sir, from Chicago. Agent Jack Doyle.
Oh, good. Put him on, please, Miss Brooks.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack. What's going on there in Chicago? What have you got for me?
Hello, Mr. Chief. This is Egon Zellschmidt speaking.
Egon? What the devil are you doing on that phone? Miss Brooks said Jack Doyle was calling me.
Sure, he is.
What?
Well, that is, I'm making the call for him, you understand. Only now I don't know if he meant you or maybe the Bureau of Missing People.
Bureau of Missing People?
Sure. Who else do you call when somebody's missing for a couple of days or two?
Who's been missing for a couple of days?
That's right.
What's right?
He's been missing for a couple of days.
Who, you idiot? Jack Doyle?
No, this is Egon Zellschmidt. What's the matter? Don't you hear so good or something?
Zellschmidt, so help me if you don't start making sense and fast.
But I'm making sense, Mr. Chief. That's why I'm calling you. Jack Doyle's missing, and he told me if it happened to him, I should call you. So here I am.
What happened to him? Where? How?
I'm glad you asked me that, Mr. Chief. And I can give you the answer right out of my cuff. What happened was...
Zellschmidt. Zellschmidt, what happened there? Can you hear me?
What's up, Chief?
There were some shots, Ken.
Yes, sir.
Get that Chicago operator. See if she can trace that call. Fast.
Yes, sir.
What was Egon telling you about Jack Doyle?
From what I could make out of his double talk, Jack's been missing for a couple of days.
Was he the man you were assigned to Chicago, tracing down those rumors?
Yes, and I haven't had a report from him for a week. And then that call from Zellschmidt.
I'll get it. Hello.
I have that information on the phone call from... Oh, it's you, Mr. Thurston.
That's right, Miss Brooks. Did you trace that call?
Yes, Mr. Thurston. It came from a public phone booth in a nightclub, the Cafe Arcady.
Cafe Arcady. Thanks, Miss Brooks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, I've got one more favor to ask.
Yes, sir. Your ticket's waiting at the airport. Flight 211 for Chicago.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Cafe Arcady.
Thanks. May I have a table, please?
You have a reservation, sir?
No, I didn't make one.
Well, then I'm sorry. We won't be able to accommodate you tonight.
Pretty crowded, are you?
Very, sir.
Well, I'm glad to hear the shooting didn't keep the customers away.
What shooting?
I heard a rumor that a few shots were fired around here early today.
The rumor was wrong.
Yeah, so many of them are. You're sure there's no table for me, not even for old time's sake?
Old time's sake? We've never met before.
Oh, sure we have, Becker. Back in 1940, we had a little run-in concerning subversive propaganda in the German-American Bund, remember?
My name's DeCosta, not Becker. I never had anything to do with the Bund. You got me mixed up with somebody else. Phone for a reservation the next time, mister. We'll be glad to accommodate you.
Thanks. I may take you up on that. Good night, DeCosta.
Good night, sir. Hey, Joe. Joe, take over, will you? I've got business in the office.
Come in.
Good evening, Edward. What brings you into my office so early?
Trouble, Mr. Arcady.
Trouble?
Just had a visitor by the name of Thurston.
Ah, yes. Thurston. The one we were told was a friend of Jack Doyle's. Mm-hmm. And did he remember also he was an old friend of yours?
He did.
Is that what brought him here?
Well, he said he'd heard a rumor about a shooting here.
I see. Edward, I dislike rumors intensely when they might interfere with my business. I think maybe we shall have to do something about Mr. Thurston.
Come into Papa's arms, baby. The drinks are already in. It's you.
Expecting someone, Egon?
Come right in, Mr. X.
All right. Now, what are you doing in Jack Doyle's hotel room? What's happened to him? Come on out with it.
Well, the way it happened, Mr. X, I was stuck here in Chicago, temporarily embarrassed without funds, you understand, when I ran into him. Naturally, he was so happy to see me, he insisted I shouldn't get out of his sight.
Oh, sure. Then what?
He said I could use his room for a couple of days. He was going to be out on some job or something, and if he didn't come back, I was to call the chief and tell him. He didn't, so I called.
You called from the Club Arcady?
Sure, I was looking for him. He was always hanging around there.
What were those shots the chief heard?
Oh, so somebody got trigger-happy in Mr. Arcady's office. Naturally, I ran to the rescue. And you know what happened?
You got lost in a saloon across the street.
How did you know?
Never mind. Did Doyle tell you what he was working on? Mention anything about rumors?
Rumors? I'm the only rumor he's got. He wasn't working on anything, or why should he go looking for a job?
For what? A job?
Sure. I found the want ad he clipped out of the paper. I got it right here somewhere. Sure, here it is.
Now, let me see that. How to be successful through talk. Learn how to sway people with words.
See?
The art of verbal mass communication. Lectures and study groups at moderate cost. See Dr. Ralph Townsend, Suite 11B, 161 North Clark Street. Dr. Ralph Townsend.
See what I mean, Mr. X? He was looking for a job.
He was looking for something at Townsend's place. Wasn't for a job. Get down.
What was going on, Mr. X?
Somebody's shooting at us, Agar. From the other wing of the hotel.
But I didn't hear no shots.
Did you ever hear of a silencer?
Oh. But why would anyone want to kill us?
I'll see if I can get an answer across the court.
Shooting? In this hotel? Surely you must be mistaken, Mr. Thurston.
No, I'm afraid not, Miss Rogers. 2 shots were fired from this wing of the hotel into that room directly across from yours.
But I didn't hear any... Did you say into the room directly across the court from this one?
That's right.
But that's Mr. Doyle's room.
Is it?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Doyle is a customer of mine. I operate the lending library in the hotel. I've memorized the room numbers of all my regular customers, and But wait a minute. Why didn't he come to my room?
Jack Doyle has disappeared, Miss Rogers.
Disappeared?
Been missing for 2 days.
But why would anyone want to kill Mr. Doyle? Or you?
I was hoping that you might be able to tell me.
I? But I only know Mr. Doyle as a customer of my library. Why would you think I could possibly know anything about this shooting unless you believe that the shots came from this room? Do you?
Miss Rogers, I'm merely trying to get the answers to a few questions.
You've got all the answers you're going to get here tonight, Mr. Thurston. Now, if you don't mind leaving.
No, of course not. Sorry if I've upset you. Oh, by the way, Miss Rogers, do you happen to be interested in rumors?
Rumors?
Yes. Or in the use of words as a method of mass conditioning? Or in a study course in how to talk your way into success?
Are you being serious?
Very much so.
But I don't even know what you're talking about.
That book on your coffee table.
Book?
Yeah. The Psychology of Lies, written by Dr. Ralph Townsend. Good night, Miss Rogers.
Look, Mr. X, I'm tired. Why don't we stop chasing wild gooses and unlocks over a couple short beers?
Not until we learn what happened to Jack Doyle, Agar.
But we've been driving around all day long, all over the city of Chicago, and we haven't learned nothing.
Oh, I don't know. In a bowling alley, we learned that our soldiers will freeze in Korea this winter while the Army sells heavy clothing for surplus.
Huh?
And a waitress in a Southside restaurant told us that the Kremlin has a direct pipeline into the atomic labs at Los Alamos.
But those stories don't make sense.
Of course they don't. They're lies. They're so big that people believe that there must be some truth to them. We've got to stop them.
Well, that's okay with me, Mr. X. But what do we do?
Go to night school.
Night school?
Yep. To take a course from Dr. Ralph Townsend in how to talk our way into success.
Crazy, Mr. Thurston, picking locks to get in school. Who ever heard of such a thing?
You're hearing it now, Eagle. Get a move on.
Okay. So there, now what?
You go in.
At least they got a nightlight burning in that other office over there. I can see what we're looking for if I only knew what it was.
Filing cabinet's always a good bet. Let's try them.
Hey, what do you know? This one's empty. This one, too. Say, what cooks he anyway, Mr. X? Don't that Dr. Townsend even keep his lunch in these files?
Let's try this desk. Looks like we got here too late.
You mean school's out that Dr. Townsend took it on a lamb?
Doesn't make sense. Not unless Jack Doyle was able...
Mr. X, somebody's in that other office.
Yeah.
Let's get this joint a brush out before he gets mad at us. The light. He turned out the light.
Quiet.
Shut!
Watch it. All right, Pagon, let's go in there. There's the switch.
Mr. X.
Yes. Jack Doyle.
We return to the man called X in just a moment. Community chests throughout the country have accepted the responsibility of raising $16.5 million extra this year for the services included in the United Defense Fund, the USO services to hard-hit defense communities, and American Relief for Korea. This means that each of us must give generously if we're to expect continued help from community chest services. In addition to this extra amount for defense-related national services, normal community demands for local Red Feather services, such as daycare, nursing, family counseling, and recreation, are rising as the population increases and the draft and stepped-up defense production make themselves felt across the country. By eliminating many separate appeals, which would be more costly in money, time, and effort, Red Feather campaigns' joint planning and budgeting benefit the contributors, the volunteer workers, and the community, as well as those who benefit directly from those services. So remember, when you make your gift to the United Red Feather campaigns, you are giving to 15,000 local services. Now, Act Two of The Man Called X, starring Herbert Marshall. Ken Thurston believes a rumor factory is operating somewhere in Chicago, organized to disrupt civilian and military morale and to hamper our defense program. In the offices of a Dr. Ralph Townsend, Ken exchanged shots with an unknown attacker. And now he and Aegon have entered the private office where the shots came from and find themselves looking at the body of Jack Doyle, a missing Bureau agent.
Oh, I don't get it, Mr. X. Why should Mr. Doyle go shooting at us and make you kill him?
I didn't kill him, Aegon.
But look at him. He's as stiff as a poker.
He's been dead at least 3 hours.
Then who bumped him out? And what happened to the joker who was taking those potluck shots at us?
There's a fire escape outside that window.
Oh, that's right. He must have taken a couple of powders. Well, what do we do now, Mr. Thurston?
May I offer a few suggestions, gentlemen? And my first suggestion is for you to drop that gun.
Sure.
Oh.
And my second suggestion is that you offer some words of explanation for your presence here and the rather unusual situation in which I find you.
You Dr. Townsend?
I can conceive of no reason why I should deny it. And you?
My name's Ken Thurston.
And I'm Mr. Egon Selschmidt.
Thank you. Now, shall we proceed with the explanations?
Suppose we make that mutual, Doctor. You're telling us why Jack Doyle was killed and why we found him in your private office.
Hardly a reasonable request under the circumstances, is it, Mr. Thurston? Particularly when I expect the answers to those questions to be forthcoming from you.
And if they're not?
Silence may be golden in the copybooks, but here in my offices it might well prove fatal.
Oh, he means that, Mr. Thurston.
Well, do you talk or do I resort to... Excuse me, please, gentlemen, and kindly remain quietly where you are. Townsend here. I see. Thank you very much for informing me. Goodbye. It would appear you are having good fortune tonight, gentlemen. A colleague of mine in the lobby informs me that the police are on their way up. Our respective explanations will have to be given to them.
I'd still like a chance to hear yours in private, Doctor. Do you think you can arrange that sometime?
I am positive I can, Mr. Thurston. I am positive I can.
police help you, Ken?
They didn't know any more about it than I did, Chief. The tip that sent them to Townsend's office was anonymous.
Anonymous tips, murder, filthy, lying rumors.
What have you got for me?
Okay. First, the Cafe Arcady, owned by Leo Arcady, ex-Russian. Came here in 39, suspected of being in the rackets. No convictions.
What about his right-hand man, Ed
He's
DaCosta?
George Becker, all right. Former German-American board member. Served 5 years, less 10 months. No file record since he was released and changed his name. No file record on Ann Rogers, either. But her family was checked and cleared for top-secret defense work during the war. The Quarto Manufacturing Company.
And Dr. Townsend?
Former psychology professor with the OWI during the war. A big wheel in psychological warfare. His record's been checked a half dozen times, and it's clean as a whistle. Well, does it help any, Ken?
It might, Chief. If I could tie any of it in with engines. Yeah.
Engines?
Jack Doyle had a smear of diesel oil in his shoes and trousers.
Don't be bashful with that caviar, baby. There's plenty more fish in the ocean where that came from. And have a couple more glasses of champagne, huh? One to drink and one to watch the bubbles in.
As long as you're beating that expense account to death, you might pour one for me, too, Eagle.
So, be glad to nothing too good for any friend. Oh, hello, Mr. Thurston.
Do you mind if I join you, Miss Rogers?
Of course not. Please sit down.
Thanks. How'd you two get together? Just a mutual attraction?
I came here because of Jack Doyle, Mr. Thurston.
Oh?
I kept thinking of what you told me, and I remembered that I'd heard him mention the Cafe Arcady several times. It was a foolish impulse, I suppose, but, well, I just had to come down here to see if I could learn anything about him.
And did you, Miss Rogers?
I'm afraid not. Then I saw Mr. Zellschmidt, the man who'd been sharing Mr. Doyle's room. So when he asked me to join in, I did.
It was strictly business with me, Mr. Thurston. I got a hunch his cookie knows plenty, so I've been pouring on the champagne until she gives in. Excuse me. Talks, you understand?
No sacrifice too great, eh, Edgar?
You said it. Excuse me.
Mr. Thurston, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Oh, go right ahead.
You asked me earlier if I were interested in rumors.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, suppose I said that I've heard the Russians are sneaking A-bomb components into every major city in the United States to be set off simultaneously on D-Day. Is that the kind of a rumor you mean?
Did you hear that, Miss Rogers?
Here, tonight.
Remember who said it?
The man at the third table to the left.
Mr. Thurston, that's Dr. Townsend.
Yeah. Why do you want to be so helpful, Miss Rogers?
Do I need a stronger reason than a man's murder, Mr. Thurston?
No, I guess not.
Hey, look. That Townsend joker's going into that back room. Do you think he's got business with the boss of this joint?
Might be interesting to find out, Adol. Suppose the two of you wait here for me, and I'll let you know.
That's far enough. Listen.
I am quite regretful of the manner in which Edward DaCosta invited you to my apartment, Mr. Thurston. Violence was not intended to be employed. Will you accept my apologies before we begin our little talk?
You're in the driver's seat, Arcady.
Very well. Mr. Thurston, I am an honest citizen. You represent my want of government. That is why I wish to speak with you. To set my record straight with the government. Both you and Jack Doyle have been investigating something in Chicago for some time now. Is it not true that neither of you has uncovered any criminal evidence against me?
Ever hear of the big lie, Arcady?
Of course.
Well, I heard a very choice one in your cafe tonight.
I am beginning to see that I have been laboring under a misapprehension, Mr. Thurston. I thought you were here to investigate me on entirely different grounds. But let me assure you that no matter what else you may believe of me, no one can question my loyalty to this country.
You know, you almost make me believe that, Arcady. Just one thing that stops me. These books and pamphlets on your desk. Looks to me like you've been taking some courses from Dr. Townsend.
I have?
Why?
For the simplest of reasons. I am a native-born Russian who has adopted this country for my own. I naturally wish to express myself in the best of English. Do I make myself clear?
I'll give you credit for a good try.
So, are there any other questions?
No? Any you'd like to ask me?
No. Good night, Mr. Thurston.
Good night, Arcady.
That's right, Mr. Thurston. That Miss Rogers took a powder, said she was tired of waiting for you.
Probably combat fatigue, Aegon. Couldn't take those popping champagne corks any longer.
Huh? What champagne? Corks?
Oh, skip it. Come on, we've got work to do.
Work?
Yeah. They're going to visit a factory where they manufacture rumors. There it is, Aegon.
That? That's no factory. It's nothing but an old, worn-out yacht tied to the dock.
Is it? Let's get aboard and see.
I don't get it, Mr. X. Why are we climbing down into the middle of this old ship anyway?
It was used as a proving ground for marine engines during the last war. Diesel engines made by the Quarto Manufacturing Company.
So what?
Remember the oil smears on Jack Doyle's pants and trousers?
Huh?
Those came from the engine room. Come on.
Oh. That lamp don't give much light, Mr. X. I can hardly see anything in... Mr. X.
Yeah. Dr. Townsend.
Boy, dead like a doorknob.
Yeah. I'd say he taught somebody all they needed to know about the psychology of the big lie, Aegon. That right, Miss Rogers?
Miss Rogers?
Where else would you expect to find the boss of the outfit?
Oh, no.
How did you find out, Mr. Thurston? Clairvoyance or sheer genius?
Simple arithmetic. Diesel oil and diesel engines add up. And you helped me prove it at Arcady's Cafe.
I did?
Yeah. You said you hadn't learned anything about Doyle there. Then you tipped your hand when you said your reason for wanting to help me was Doyle's murder. What happened, Anne? Was Doyle killed here, then taken to Townsend's office?
Yes. Then Townsend was to be killed there, too. After we moved all the incriminating evidence to the ship. When you came in off schedule, it upset things.
Hey, then what are we waiting for, Mr. X? Let's take her along to the pokey.
It's not that easy, Aegon.
Sure, she hasn't got a gun.
That's right, but the guy who shot Townsend has.
The guy who?
He means me, Zellschmidt.
Oh!
Still up to your old tricks, DaCosta? First for the Bund, now for Anne Rogers and her bosses?
Why not?
I've got lots of answers for that one, DaCosta. Meanwhile, I'd better smash that lamp.
Wait, hold it.
Shoot him, DaCosta. Don't let him get away. Shoot him.
Where are you, Thurston? You can't get away? Thurston!
Over here, DaCosta. He's over here.
Thurston.
Right here, DaCosta.
Oh, you...
Aegon, you all right?
How can I tell in all this dark? How can I? Oh, that flashlight helps it. Mr. X, that cute cookie, what happened to her?
One of DaCosta's shots got her by mistake.
Oh.
Well, the rumor factory is finished.
But I don't get it. If her family's got factories and yachts and stuff, what was she doing mixed up in a racket like this?
That's the puzzling thing about people like her. Frightening. With everything this country has given to them, they still sell themselves on the idea that other country is better. Why can't they realize that that's the biggest lie of all?
Now, Now, here is our star, Mr. Herbert Marshall.
Thanks for being with us. And my thanks to Shirley Mitchell, Fritz Feld, Ted Von Elst, Sheldon Leonard, Dan O'Hurley, and Stan Waxman. Next week, a malicious job of sabotage in Ankara, Turkey. Sabotage that might well be a threat to the whole free world. Of course, in that category, we ought to include Leon Belasco, who will be along as Pagon Zellschmidt. So join us, won't you, when next I return as The Man Called X. Good night.
The Man Called X, starring Herbert Marshall, is a J. Richard Kennedy production with music by Milton Charles. Tonight's story was written by Sidney Marshall. This program is directed by Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents on this program are fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. And so until next week, and please consult your local papers for time and station, this is Jack Latham saying good night for The Man Called X. This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.
The last episode for 1951, and we get a substitute Zellschmidt. Very disappointing. But other than that, I thought it was an interesting episode. It's a good thing we don't deal with this sort of misinformation and rumors in our time. Obviously sarcasm. In all seriousness, this sort of thing has always been a problem. It's just, I think, gotten more acute in recent years as the speed and ease of spreading information and misinformation has become far easier. I do wonder whether the title of this episode is correct. I believe that An Invitation to Murder was the title of the episode that aired the week after the last episode we played, and that had an entirely different plot. However, this is kind of the circulating old-time radio title, and I am very loath to title it something else because it'll confuse search engines and people looking for episodes. And sometimes I'm willing to choose a different title or ignore a title like in special circumstances, but if I don't have anything better or the actual accurate title, then an inaccurate title that helps people find it is better than an accurate title that'll confuse people. And I guess it's not actually an accurate title when you think about it, if it's simply one that makes sense to me, but isn't actually the title that it was given on the script, since I don't know that. The good news is that this huge gap of missing episodes isn't actually repeated. We have the vast majority of the 1952 episodes in circulation. I think we're just missing maybe 3 of them, something like that. Alright, well now I want to go ahead and thank our Patreon supporter of the day. Thank you to Jill, Patreon supporter since August 2019, currently supporting us at the Shamus level of $4 or more per month. And that will actually do it for today. If you are enjoying this podcast, please rate and review it wherever you download your podcast from. We'll be back next Wednesday with The Man Called X, but join us back here tomorrow for the adventures of Philo Vance, where...
Let's see now. The show went on the air at 9. He picked us contestants out of the studio audience at about 8:30. I must have got there about 8:15, I guess.
And Burke was killed an hour later while you were still in the studio.
Sure,
Mr. Albert, I'd like to...
Hey, that's Carol's voice. Some guy's with her. Maybe the murderer.
Come on, Vance.
I'm with you, Markham.
There's no use arguing, miss. I'm staying
That's a
right
cop
with
with Miss Murdoch. Listen, you...
Wait a minute. I'll handle this, Alberts. Good evening, officer. I'm Markham, district attorney.
Oh, hello, Mr. Markham. And how are you this evening?
Well, how are you this evening, you in a minute? Mr. Markham, this officer of yours has been pushing me around, and I won't stand for it. I'm Carol Murdoch.
No, take it easy, Miss Murdoch. What's wrong, officer?
Well, I picked this young lady up about an hour and a half ago, Mr. Markham. She was speeding, going like a bat, headed for this place. For a half hour, she wouldn't tell me who she was. Then, when we finally get to headquarters, she tells me her name is Carol Murdoch.
Well, that's who she is. She is Carol Murdoch.
Shut up, Sonny. I'm talking to Mr. Markham.
Yep.
So, Mr. Markham, I asked to see her license, and she says she hasn't got any. Then, when I want to take her in again, she said she left it at home. So, here we are.
I see. What time did you pick her up, officer?
Oh, I should say about 9:20.
And the murder was committed at about 9:10, Markham?
So we've been informed.
Look, I know all about the murder. I heard it firsthand over the police radio. I know one of my men was killed. But that doesn't give this cop any license to treat me like a criminal.
Driving without a license is against the law, Miss Murdoch. Officer, where did you pick her up?
Just a short distance from her own stable, sir.
And you heard about this murder from the police radio, Miss Murdoch?
Yes, of course I did. Ask this big lug here. He heard it with me.
That's right, sir.
Well, I don't doubt that you heard about it over the police radio, Miss Murdoch. I was just wondering if it was news to you when you did hear it.
I hope you'll be with us then. In the meantime, do send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter @Radio Detectives and check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/greatdetectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing